Hi, everyone, and welcome to English for You. I'm Erin.
And I'm Mike.
And we are talking about a really interesting kind of tourist attraction that you can find in Turkey.
That's right. The country, not the bird.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just wondering if you've seen any cool old or natural sights in your travels around the world.
Well, I'm an old natural site.
Okay.
But let's see. The oldest naturalist site I've seen, mountains? I've been to Switzerland. I've been to the Canadian Rockies.
Okay, they don't have to be oldest natural.
Mountains are... Oh, one time I went to a Roman villa in Britain, an ancient Roman villa, and really cool. The tour guide, I guess, who was a scientist, an archaeologist working there, let us take a little stone from the floor, like a floor tile.
That seems unprofessional.
From the kitchen. I kind of think that now, but when I was, 10 years old, this was so cool. And I still have it today.
Interesting.
And I remember thinking that maybe a Roman had spilt wine or walked across it in their Roman sandals or something. So that was kind of cool. It was about, around 2,000 years old or so. So what about you?
Well, I've been to the Great Wall of China.
Ooh, that's old.
That's
old.
pretty
well,
old.
Parts of it are older.
Yeah. I went on a hike and...
cool.
Yeah.
Was it like the famous part, or did you find one of the more...
It was one of the quieter parts.
The quieter parts.
Yeah.
I've heard about that all the tourists go to the part near Beijing, but if you travel a little further, you can find it...
There's still quite a few tourists, but it's not like... an amusement park.
Right. There's not a traffic jam of tourists.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's get started on today's article to find out what exactly we are talking about in the country Turkey.
Reading.
Pamukkale and Hierapolis, Turkey's lost treasures. Earthquakes changed Turkey's geography for good about 400,000 years ago. Thermal water, filled with calcium carbonate, started to escape from under the ground. As the water flowed, the calcium carbonate turned into a white rock called Travertine and formed terraces. Each terrace contained pools of bright blue hot springs. This is now Pamukkale, or Turkey's Cotton Castle. In 190 BC, the city of Hierapolis was founded above Pamukkale's white terraces. The Greeks noticed that the water had healing properties and turned the area into a spa. Later, after more earthquakes destroyed Hierapolis, the Romans built the city again. Pamukkale and Hierapolis were hit by another earthquake in 1354. This time, people washed their hands of the area for centuries. Then, in 1957, restorations began and several hotels were built on top of the ancient city. Sadly, with more tourists visiting, the Travertine and the water turned brown. However, the government has recently torn down the hotels and protected the pools, making them enjoyable once again.
All right, so today's article kind of gives us an idea of where this sort of site comes from. In the first line, it says, earthquakes changed Turkey's geography for good about 400,000 years ago. Not many humans around back then, but what did happen I guess, happened because of an earthquake, and it's changed Turkey's land or geography, the way that the land is formed, for good. Now, this phrase is another way of saying for all time or for forever. Now, as an example for good, we could say after Jenna hurt her knee, she had to stop playing basketball for good.
Interesting. So they had a lot of earthquakes. Of course, these form mountains and things like that. But other things come along with earthquakes. We read, thermal water filled with calcium carbonate started to escape from under the ground. All right, well, this is pretty interesting and actually not that strange for people here in Taiwan.
No.
If you've ever been to Yanmingshan or parts of Beitou or even over on Green Island, you'll find stuff like this, hot water bubbling up from underground, carrying lots of chemicals and minerals and things like that. And often, when we talk about hot things in general, we can use this adjective thermal. All right, thermal basically has to do with heat. Aaron and I are both from Canada. We know what thermal underwear is. This is the...
If you don't wear it in the winter.
That's right. We also call it long underwear or long johns. Why? That's what you'd see on the package in a store. Thermal underwear. You wear it in the winter, it keeps you warm. So it's basically clothes, underwear that keep you warm. So when you see thermal, think temperature, think thermometer, that thing you use to measure temperature. So this warm water filled with all of these chemicals and minerals started to escape from under the ground, just like we find at a hot spring.
Okay, so let's find out what this phrase be filled with means. When something is filled with another thing, it is full of that thing. As another example, we could say, this box is filled with my winter clothes, so I'm going to put it away for now. Now, it's filled with calcium carbonate, and what you should know about that is that it's a mineral that has the ability to turn into a hard substance, such as stone, in certain conditions.
Interesting.
So if it is in this particular water, it can harden once it gets out of the ground.
Okay, this is, something we'd find in caves or around volcanoes and things like that.
Yeah.
All right, next we read, as the water flowed, the calcium carbonate turned into a white rock called Travertine and formed terraces, all right? When things flow, basically they're running like water, okay? When you open a tap in a sink or when you flush the toilet or when you pour water out of a jug, the water is flowing. We also talk about, of course, rivers flowing. Rivers flow from higher ground down to lower ground and eventually into a lake or into the sea. We have this word flow, and in the example sentence, this river flows over 500 kilometers to the sea. We can also sometimes use the verb to run. A river runs to the sea, but flow gives the idea of water moving across the land or moving through space. And we also had the phrase to turn into something.
That's right. So what's happening is as the water is sort of moving, this particular mineral in the water, instead of moving with it, it kind of turns into a white rock. Now, when something turns into something else or into somebody else, when one thing turns into another thing, it changes and becomes something else. For example, the ugly beast turned into a handsome prince when Belle told him she loved him.
All right. And we also had the idea that this rock, or this travertine, it also formed terraces. A terrace is basically a raised area of land. It's often built up or it's formed naturally. It's like a field, but the fields are arranged kind of like steps.
Right.
If you're going up some stairs, each one is a little bit higher than the other. That would be a terrace. So people can create them, but also they can be created by, geological activity, by earthquakes and volcanoes and things like that. But basically, it's like stepped land. It's land that goes up in steps. For example, we move on to the next sentence, which tells us about these terraces.
That's right. So here in the article, it says, each terrace contained pools of bright blue hot springs.
Wow, that sounds beautiful.
Yeah, so if you think about this, we know that it's this beautiful white rock, and it kind of makes steps in this really big hill.
Those are the terraces.
And in each terrace, there's a pool of bright blue water.
Wow, like steps that are swimming pools.
Exactly.
Sounds like a luxury hotel, but it's all natural. Amazing. Next we read, this is Pamukkale, or Turkey's Cotton Castle. It's the name of the place, and it's also known as Cotton Castle. That might be in the Turkish language. And we have a bit of history here.
Yes, so this place is pretty interesting. It's got a history that goes pretty far back in human history, and it says here, in 190 BC, the city of Hierapolis was founded above Pamukkale's white terraces. Now, before we talk about the vocabulary word found, let's talk a bit about the grammar pattern we used in that sentence. We used passive voice to talk about the city. Now, when we use passive voice, we use this pattern. We start with subject, then we add a be verb, then we add a past participle, and we can tell who does the action at the end, or we can leave that off. Now, we use passive voice to show that an object or the thing is more important than the people who did that thing. So, for example, in the sentence above, we could say, the city of Hierapolis was founded by the Greeks. Or we could say, the Greeks founded the city of Hierapolis. However, because in this sentence, we want to make the city more important than the Greeks, we use passive voice. We put the city first. All right, well, here's another example sentence. Let's look at the subject, the plants. Then we have our be verb, were. Then we have our past participle, watered. The plants were watered by my mother.
Okay.
Now, if the mother's more important, we say it like this. My mother watered the plants.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And we also had the verb found. That was a little interesting. The city of Hierapolis was founded. Now, of course, a lot of people would say, wait a minute, shouldn't it be to find, right? You find something? Well, yes, found is the past tense of the verb find. I found my watch under the bed or something like this. But here, we're using found, and you can use it in the present tense because it's a different meaning. In this case, to found something or founded, to give it the past tense, this means to set up or to establish or to begin something. We often use this when talking about businesses, countries, institutions. For example, Apple Computers was founded in California in the 1970s. You could say it was set up, it was established, or it was begun or started. It's kind of the same idea. But of course, we don't use found like talking about starting an action. We use it to talk about starting a thing, like a country, a school, a hospital, something like that.
We've got a little bit of history here. We know that the Greeks, they founded this city. And here's another thing about the Greeks. It says the Greeks noticed that the water had healing properties and turned the area into a spa.
Cool.
Okay, so here's something a little bit, we should talk about the history a bit. So Pamukkale, like we said in the first couple of sentences, and Hierapolis are in modern-day Turkey. But when they were founded way back then, that area was actually controlled by the Greeks or people from Greece, not the Turkish people.
That's right.
Okay, let's talk about the water here and what we're saying about the water. So we said the water has healing properties. When we use healing as an adjective in this way, we're saying that the water has properties or qualities that can heal you. So we can use the verb heal as an adjective by adding ing to it. We're saying that this water is healing, which means it has the ability to heal. For example, we could also say this. This plant is believed to have a healing effect. Put it on your skin after you get a sunburn.
Very, very interesting. So those are healing properties.
Yes.
Property here is a noun. It's not talking about land or a building that you own. That is property. If you buy land or buy a house, you are buying property. Here, though, a property is a quality or something like that, a special feature, a special trait of something that you could talk about, all right? So medicines, for example, have healing properties. When we talk about the property, that's the special part in that thing that we're really bringing attention to.
Now, one of the properties of this water turned the area into travertine. So that is also one of the properties. It has this property to become stone. And the other properties here are they're healing. So
that's right.
There are minerals inside them that are good for your body and they help you stay healthy. And so what the Greeks did is they wanted to use that water for people's health. So they turned the area into a spa. Now, when you turn A into B, one person is making this action happen. It's saying that we have changed something to make it become something else. Right. So here, as an example, we could say, I turned the sofa into a bed so my friend could have a place to sleep.
Oh, okay. So you're doing something to make something kind of different from what it was originally. All right. In this case, they turned the area into a spa. Ooh. Yes, you're saying that's a town in France. And you're right. Spa is a town in France. But because of the water in that town in France, that's why we give the name to places where people go for their health, okay? Spa's not like a hospital. It won't have doctors maybe working there, and you don't go there when you break a leg. But if you're feeling unhealthy, if you have some minor problems, maybe with your skin or something like that, you can go to a spa. Generally, they're doing sort of healthy things to you, giving you baths, making you drink special water. They won't be, cutting into your body or, doing things like in a hospital.
Right. Okay, so all these earthquakes, not great for the area, even though it's this beautiful place. Here it says later, after more earthquakes destroyed Hierapolis, the Romans built the city again. Now, when something is destroyed, it is damaged or hurt so badly that it can't be used again or no longer exists.
Okay.
Natural disasters like earthquakes or typhoons destroy cities. Wars destroy countries.
That's true.
And if I'm really angry, I can destroy a piece of paper by ripping it up.
Wow, yeah, you could destroy a car if you have a big accident or something. We don't usually use it about people, though, right? People get killed or hurt or something, so things get destroyed. And something that could destroy something, an earthquake. And that's what we next read about. It says, Pamukkale and Hierapolis were hit by another earthquake in 1354. So when you hit something, you're like striking it with your hand, but also we can talk about earthquakes or typhoons or things like that hitting an area.
Right. Now, earthquakes in this place. So in 1354, another earthquake just destroyed the city again. And this time, people washed their hands of the area for centuries. So let's see what our friends say about the phrase, wash one's hands of something.
I'm afraid I have some bad news, Pat.
Oh dear. What's wrong this time?
The bosses want us to change the project idea again.
What? This is the 6th time!
I know, they keep changing their minds about what they want.
They don't know what they want. I'm washing my hands of this.
What do you mean?
If you wash your hands of something, you refuse to have anything more to do with something. You put some distance between it and yourself.
So, wash one's hands of something or somebody means 不再管怎么样怎样怎样或是与什么什么什么断绝关系
That's right. I'm having nothing more to do with this project.
You can't do that. You're always complaining. I've had enough of your bad attitude. I'm about ready to wash my hands off of you.
Okay, let's both calm down and work together to figure this out.
Then we read, then in 1957, 1957, just about 60 years ago, restorations began and several hotels were built on top of the ancient city. So people basically came back. Restoration is basically when you fix up something that's old. It's old, it's broken down, maybe people left it for a long time, it's kind of falling apart. But then another group of people come in and say, you know what? We're going to bring this back to its glory, to the way it looked when it was new and shiny and bright and great. And they kind of don't change it too much. They just make it new again.
That's right. Now, we did use passive voice in that sentence again. We said several hotels were built on top of the ancient city. Now, one of the reasons we use passive voice is to make one thing more important than the other. Now, the other reason we use passive voice is when we don't know who did the action. So the person doing the action maybe isn't quite clear. So here we said several hotels were built on top of the ancient city, but we didn't say by who. Okay, so we don't always need to include sort of the person who's doing it at the end. For example, if I said, my purse was stolen. Now, if I knew who stole it, I'd go get it back.
That's right.
Right? But I didn't, so I just said my purse was stolen.
Right. Okay, let's get back to the article. So what happened after these restorations? It says, well, sadly, with more tourists visiting, the Travertine and the water turned brown. Here's a lesson to us all. Yes, it was popular when they restored everything back in the 50s, 1950s. It was popular, but it kind of became too popular. Too many tourists came, and it started to affect the land and the water. Everything turned brown. It became ugly. There was too much pollution. So basically, it got too popular, too dirty, and the tourists stopped coming.
Here it says, however, the government has recently torn down the hotels and protected the pools, making them enjoyable once again.
They're cleaning it up.
Let's find out who's doing this. It's the government, and it's a group of people that runs a country. Now, this could be a president and all the people that work for the president, or it could be a different kind of government, such as one with a king or a queen or a prime minister. As an example, we could say, Sasha wants to work for the government, so she is going to study politics in university.
That's a good idea. All right. And they're going to tear down some of these hotels. When you tear down something, it's kind of like destroy or break or wreck. But the idea here is that you're kind of doing it because you want to. It's not an accident or a typhoon or a war. It's because someone's decided, hey, that building's old, it's unsafe, or it's just ugly. Let's get rid of it. For example, that old shopping mall will be torn down and will be replaced by a new park.
All right, so what they're doing is they're making the area more enjoyable. Now, this adjective means that something brings you pleasure or is a lot of fun or nice to do, like visiting a park or going to the movies with your friends, something like that. For example, we all had an enjoyable day at the zoo. We should go again sometime. That brings us to the end of our article. We have more to talk about Hierapolis's history tomorrow, but we're going to say goodbye with our For You chat for now.
For You chat.
Okay, our For You chat question today. What should a government do to protect natural or historic areas? Please explain.
Good question. Well, I'm a believer that you have to have some rules and laws to protect the land, especially because people get greedy. They like making money. They like putting up businesses that make them rich. But sometimes that is allowed to go on too long without protecting the land, right? Because the land can't fight back. The land can't yell out, "Stop, I'm getting sick." Right. So the government needs to do that. They need to listen to scientists and not just the business people.
Right.
I think in the Philippines, right, they closed down an island.
Yeah, that's true.
It's tough for the people who live there because they're not going to be making money from the tourists, but the government...
They're also not going to be making money from the tourists if the beach is destroyed.
That's exactly right. The government's saying, well, you won't make money for a short time, but you'll make money for a much longer time because everything will look nice again for many years.
Right.
You just have to give up a few months or a short time of losing money. and it will protect your life and your hotel and your business for a lot longer. So it's about having a long-term vision or a future vision and not just thinking about today.
Well, that is a great answer, Mike.
Thanks.
It's the only time we have for today. So you guys think about some ideas of your own. There are plenty of great ideas out there, and maybe one of them can actually help protect one of the places in Taiwan.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Now, that's all we have for today, so we'll be back tomorrow again with more information about Pamukkale and Hierapolis. See you then.
Pamukkale and Hierapolis, Turkey's lost treasures. Earthquakes changed Turkey's geography for good about 400,000 years ago. Thermal water, filled with calcium carbonate, started to escape from under the ground. As the water flowed, the calcium carbonate turned into a white rock called Travertine and formed terraces. Each terrace contained pools of bright blue hot springs. This is now Pamukkale, or Turkey's Cotton Castle. In 190 BC, the city of Hierapolis was founded above Pamukkale's white terraces. The Greeks noticed that the water had healing properties and turned the area into a spa. Later, after more earthquakes destroyed Hierapolis, the Romans built the city again. Pamukkale and Hierapolis were hit by another earthquake in 1354. This time, people washed their hands of the area for centuries. Then, in 1957, restorations began and several hotels were built on top of the ancient city. Sadly, with more tourists visiting, the Travertine and the water turned brown. However, the government has recently torn down the hotels and protected the pools, making them enjoyable once again.
Vocabulary Review.
Flow. Water flows down this mountain into a river and then off into the sea. Found. Thomas Edison founded this company more than 100 years ago. Healing. Some people believe that hot springs can have healing effects on the body. Destroy. The enemy army destroyed many buildings here during the war. Government. Our country's government has a president rather than a king or queen. Enjoyable. We had a picnic in the park today and then relaxed for a while. It was an enjoyable experience.